I'll do more today. That's all.
Yes. Yeah. I have my. Yeah. Well, yeah. This is like this. And they do that part. Yeah, and then it's the rest of the
But that works. But do you see that? I know why.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. But that's cool. Okay, that's good. Yeah. I have never heard that. That's All right. Good morning. Let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot of stuff to cover today. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of, but a lot of heavy stuff. All right. So before we begin, and I'll walk you through what all we are going to be doing today. In the last class, there was a mini project, and we divided into teams, and everybody was working on it. Um, there was 2 points to that. One was, of course, that you understand. You are able to create a small JavaScript application. Okay. The other point was not to see, but get you guys an experience how it is to work on teams. A lot of you guys must have already worked on teams, and some of you guys haven't worked on teams. So this was to give you a little bit insight, and over time in this class you will see I'll be creating groups, and then you'll have projects also. So one of the things I saw was there were 8 groups. Please don't quit, as I said, because I like my perfect 4 8 groups. Most of the groups were good, and there was a lot of collaboration. But some I saw, there was not a lot of collaboration. But what I mean is, everybody seemed like they were working on their own thing. One of the things that is important in software engineer is being a team player. Okay. The unfortunate part of this industry is that you will find a lot of really good programmers, right? But a lot of like arrogant pricks also, right? And it kind of comes with it. Maybe it's the pay or the pampering that is done and all that stuff. Maybe that's what it is. But the best combination, and a lot of people, especially hiring managers, have seen this and have realized this. And I've been on the interview table of both sides, okay. So if a person does really well in interview, in technical, he is or she is the interview. But if the person who's interviewing them gives a comment saying, "Oh, the person is really good, but I didn't feel like he or she would be a good team player," okay, 100% of the time that person is not hired. I'm telling you, no hiring manager is even going to touch that person. even though that technically that person is strong, the reason is because, as I said, this industry has a lot of arrogant pricks. Okay, nobody wants to work, and it's kind of, the productivity actually goes down instead of increasing the productivity. And you will see, number one fear of every hiring manager is that you add a new person to the team, and instead of the productivity going up, it kind of goes down, right? Is that person not a good coder or a programmer? That's not the case. They hired that person because he or she aced the interview, right? The technical interview. So one of the good skills is not only be a good programmer, but be a good team player, and also have some soft skills. These are difficult things to come about in an engineer, but I'm telling you, this is the recipe of the perfect candidate that everybody is looking for. If you are above average programmer, or your way around coding, and then they get the sense that you have some good soft skills, and you come out as a good team player, like a culture fit. That is what will give you and they will go beyond to whatever offer they make. You can negotiate and everything. I'm telling you that they will try to match that offer, because it's not a rare skill, but it's a very sought out skill. These three things that I needed. Okay, and I tell this, it seems easy, but it's not easy for a person to kind of get all those skills. When I was younger and more ignorant, what I was like, I'm a above average programmer. I'm able to complete my tasks. And then I was on a team, and I was like, okay, I'm able to complete all my tasks, but my team was still not able to complete the commitments, right? As a team, we were still failing, but individually, I was like, well, I'm able to complete everything. I don't care what everybody else is doing, right? So my boss talked to me. He's like, okay, so from the team, I see that you are contributing and you are able to complete everything, but still the team is failing. I mean, we still, let's suppose we have 5 tasks to complete, and only 3 are being completed, right? What's the reason? I mean, why is you are successful but the team is not successful, right? I was like, well, I don't know. I do my stuff. I don't know what everybody else is doing. That was the point that he told me that that's, if you are successful, the team is not successful. You are not going to get anything out of it. I mean, it's still a failure as a team, and you're not going to get accolades or anything. The thing is, if you are completing, please reach out and see what the other person is doing. Why is the team not successful? It took me some years, and at this point, I'm more, I would say, less arrogant and more calmer. With my experience, I've kind of gone into that mentorship role, teaching role. It has changed a lot of stuff in me. So I have realized, how important it is to be successful as a team. Okay. Now within our class, you are in a team, and again, there's nothing to be shy about it. You are a person who are at a higher skill level, right? Everybody in the class is different, right? You are in a team of 4, and you can easily find out that, okay, from these people, I am, I know where I stand among the team, right? If you are at a higher level, it is your responsibility, and this is a big word, responsibility. It is your responsibility to make sure that everybody on your team is also getting it, right? It's not just you just work as an individual contributor, and here's my work, right? This is a group project, so make sure, see who's struggling, and this would be a teaching moment for you. Okay. And on the other side, if you are somebody who's struggling, it is your responsibility to stand up, look over the shoulder, and see what the other person is doing, right? Try to see how people tackle the same issue, right? The problem statement is still the same. You are reading it, and the other person is also reading it, right? So try to understand what the other person is getting out of it that you are not, right? Try to be polite, try to be nice, because it's in your interest to learn from that other person, right? So be like, oh, don't try to be very pestering, but try to come up with a good conversation. Try to understand what the other person is seeing and how they are able to do it so well. Okay, this has absolutely helped me, right? That's how I've learned over my career, that I go to people who are more smarter, and I try to find out how they're doing it more efficient, right? This is nothing unique that I am able to do it. I've all learned from different people. I've seen what are best practices, and that's how you become good programmer. Okay. um, So those were the things that I wanted to talk about before we actually begin the class. Um, After that, any questions from previous, any activity, anything that was confusing or you did not understand from the activities that we did on Thursday? So either you guys didn't do it or you guys got everything. That's kind of, oh, finally. Yes, Kelly, please. Yes. Activity 20. What is activity 20? Activity 20 is hard loop. Okay. All right, let me quickly copy, find activity 20, and then let's see. All right, meanwhile, I'm copying this. Anybody tried activity 20? Okay. Let's take a look at what activity 20 is. What? I just copied it. Oh, I didn't delete that? It should be. I thought I copied it, so come on. Where is it? Should be on my. There it is. All right. Let's take a look at this. Okay. So you have to create a for loop. Create a loop that does the following: logs each animal on the farm to the console. Okay. Is the first point clear? Were you able to complete the first one? Okay, so you created a for loop which runs to the length of this array and then console logs each one of them. Okay. Then check if the first letter in animals begins with a C or O. If it does, create an alert saying starts with a C or O. Okay. You can access the first character of a string as if it were first element of the array. Okay. So first is explaining this. So what is the ask? That you're going to check each element of the array and try to find out what is the letter of what's the first character of this each element. Okay. If it is this, then do this. Else do this. So we are expecting an if-else statement also. Okay. So what did you try? What was the? Did you find a function? Yes. Right. Char or car. This is the function that Teddy is talking about. And did you look up on MDN and see what it does? Okay, so it is supposed to, whatever position that you put in over here, it will pull the first that character, right? So okay, so you have your HTML. I'm just going to do it over here for now. Okay, so the first thing is, let's go ahead and copy this. So we have our var variable, okay, and then go ahead and loop to it for var I is equal to 0, I is less than my farm dot length, okay, and then I plus plus, Okay. Console log this, so log, and then my farm I. Okay. Now we need a if statement, and the function is char add. Okay. So what does this do? As Caddy is saying, that it will return you the first character of a string. Okay, of a string. Now, what is the is my farm a string? No, it's an array. But what is the string? The elements are a string, right? So my farm I or any index returns me a string, right? My farm I gives me a string, and that method, that function that Kadian mentioning, char add, runs on a string. So if you look at the hint or the documentation over here, it's saying string dot char add. This means that you need to add a string over here, and that's what we're doing. My farm I, any element is actually a string. So I'm saying string dot this function, and this POS means position, right? Position of that string. Position of every character in this string. Okay. So what does this mean? If I do char at 0, this means I am passing it in this string, and then I'm saying give me the character at index number 0. Index number 0 is the same as our array, right? Or position number 0. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So what is when I is 0? This is my first string that comes along, right? Chickens. All right. So what's the first character in chickens? It's C, right? If you put in 1, it's going to give you H. If you put in 2, it's going to give you I, and so on and so forth. Okay. So you are basically saying if my first character at position 0 is, what are we checking? C is C, then do something. Okay, so that's how you do. And the other was is C or O. Is that what it said? Okay, so how do we do the R? 1 well, pipes, it's called pipes. And then my farm I dot char at 0 is equal to O. Okay, then you do that alert over here. Okay, this is how you get each character within a string. Okay, now if you want to get a little bit more technical, you can see that this function is actually treating each string as an array also. Why am I saying as an array? Why? It's an array of individual characters. This is a string, but it's an array of individual characters. That's why it's able to get by position. Oh, what's at position 0? What's at position 1? And from our array, we understand that these are indexes, right? Index number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So technically, behind the scene, this string is also an array of individual characters. That's why it's able to get these individual characters at each location, at each index.
Why is the variable I?
Why is the variable I?
Is that I?
Which variable?
Where it says for, and let's get the parentheses variable I.
This is the for loop that we did.
That's just the loop.
Yeah, that's just a loop. Yeah. That's just a loop. Okay. Any questions? All right. Carrie, did that answer your question? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and start our. So today we are going to look at functions, objects, JavaScript objects. We'll do a few exercises. Then today the TS will introduce you to homework number 3, which is JavaScript. And then there's a checkpoint towards the end of the class, and then I'll talk about the checkpoint towards the end. Okay. Let's go back here and pull up my examples. All right, so the concepts today are actually pretty advanced, right? We did day 1 and day 2. As I said, when this week began, that by Saturday you will have enough knowledge of JavaScript, okay? Enough knowledge that you can create a small application. All right, there's still a few more advanced ones, but trust me, these concepts are still under when you search basic JavaScript, right? This is the expectation that these are all under still basic. I know these are not basic, but these are considered basic. Now imagine how the advanced ones are. Okay, so we haven't even gotten to that part. We will eventually get there. But please make sure that you are studying. These are concepts that you absolutely have to like 100% know, right? And when I talk about you have to be an expert in it, by expert I mean that you have gone through all the activities of this week. First step is you understand overview, you understand the concepts. The second is you understand each individual activity, and the expert level is that you understand each single line in those activities. Again, I'm not talking about JavaScript, I'm talking about the activities for JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript itself, yes, there are a lot more concepts, but the activities that we have done, my expectation is you're going to get good at those, right? At least you should know every single line of JavaScript in those activities, what it is doing, why it is doing it. If you don't know, please ask. Okay, you can, if you don't want to ask in the class, Slack is there, Slack it out. You don't even want everybody to see your question, then you can send me a direct message or the TAs and ask your question. But please make sure you understand every single line of JavaScript in those activities, okay? There are certain, in those activities, there are certain things that I haven't gone over, and that is intentional. I want you guys, for example, this question, right? I'm glad Kelly asked. There are still like a couple of things, and nobody has asked me. So, to be honest, that's kind of like my checkpoint. I leave it intentionally to see that if you guys are actually going back and doing those activities. Okay? I hope everybody is doing and everybody stood those couple of concepts that I've left over there. Okay? One of them was this. The other one is the mat.random. I know a couple of people asked me last class. That's one of the things. If you don't understand, please let me know. That's important. Um, there is one with the script tag. If you take your code and put it in a separate JavaScript file, you will. Eric ran into that issue. So you will run into that issue, but only one person actually came with that. So those are kind of things to watch out for. If you get into that issue, please ask. Okay, I want you guys to explore, find out some of the issues and concepts in those activities. Okay. So any questions? All right. So what we are going to do, we are going to start with a quick recap. We already did the this one. This is this one. All right, we'll do this together. All right, this does not require you to code, but we are going to make sure that we understand and then move on to the next one. Okay? All right, let's see. Cairo. Did I say that right? He's not looking at me, so did I mispronounce it?
Oh, Cairo.
Cairo.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Cairo. Line number 11 has a comment with question marks. So tell me line number 12. What is line number 12, Cairo?
So basically, you're just you have an
You're doing what?
you have an empty array in front.
Empty array, yes. Anything to add? Empty array, that's correct. I'm just trying to get to more like a technical lingo part now.
You're declaring a variable.
Oh, you guys got it. Yes, you are declaring an array. Okay? And the array is empty. So the complete sentence is I'm declaring an array, I'm declaring an empty array, right? I could have put in something over there, but this array is an empty, so that's what's going on. Okay? All right, let's see, Eric. Line number 20.
you're having it, I guess ask the question.
Mhm. So you're right. It's a prompt. So what does prompt return?
I guess something for you to fill in.
Right. And what's the data type for that prompt? That the return?
String.
String. Okay. So you're asking a question. You're asking something, and it should give you back a string, which gets stored over here. Okay. But what is this I doing over here? What's the? So you'll have to look at from line number 17 and kind of see what is the question that comes up when I run this program. What is it going to? What would I see when I run this program? I'm not going to see I over here, obviously. What would I see?
So you would see 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so it will be what's your number one favorite TV show? Okay, and then how many times am I going to see that?
Would it be 3 since it's saying less than 4?
Yes, so 1, 2, and 3. And the value of I would be starting from 1. We have seen starting it from 0,
So it didn't know
right?
3 then, right? Since it's adding 1, so it would be 1 plus 1 would already be 2, so it would be.
Yes, yes. So you can change the starting position. It does not have to be 0. Why it was not 0 here? Because it doesn't make sense to saying what's your number 0. I mean, to me, it will make sense as in programmers to us, but somebody who is not a programmer would be like, what's 0? What's your 0 favorite TV show? Okay, so that's why we have it starting at 1. Okay, it goes up to 1, 2, and 3, and at 4 it stops and comes out. Okay,
So
now
the I is 3 there?
I is 3. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to stop. Okay. Now here's the thing, Eric. Continue. At line number 20, walk me through what's going to happen. Like just this loop. Like how do you think it's working? So it starts from here. My I is 1. Then what happens?
Then it checks if it's less than 4,
Yeah. Okay.
and if it's less than 4, then it runs it, then it's adding 1 more.
Okay. And then it comes to line number 20.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Then it prompts it, so it's asking the question, what's your number? Then it's adding the I, and then
Okay.
getting your favorite.
So what happens over here? The screen comes up. Does the loop gets blocked or keep continuing?
It continues.
Over here, it gets over here. I see the prompt on the screen. What happens? Unless I enter something, is it blocked over here or is it continuing?
Or until you enter something, then it's
Right. So the important point over these prompts, these pop-ups are blocking. They will block your code execution. They will block your browser. They will block everything. Okay. When your for loop is running, as soon as it comes over here, it's going to stop, and the execution of program is going to stop over it until you enter something, and then it's going to proceed. Okay. Important point. Just remember. So these prompts, these are blocking. They will block your UI. They will block your code. It's going to stop over here until you enter something. Okay, once you enter the TV show, this is complete, then it's going to come over here. Okay? All right, let's see.
So you're saying that if
What
you
is-
enter, if you press OK when the
Yeah, okay or
area
cancel.
is blank,
What is it? Yeah,
that's what you're saying?
okay or cancel, any button, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Unless you press something, it's going to stop over here. It's not going to, the for loop is stopped here.
It's not going to record like a null or something?
No, that's beside the point, whatever it records. I'm saying it will block over here. Now you press cancel, yes, it's going to record a null. You press something else, it's going to record a space, but your execution is stopped over until you take some action. Right, yeah, you can press cancel or anything. Yes, John.
So, getting help, but line 23 is putting that value that the user put it into the array.
I had picked somebody up to answer that question, but John, go ahead.
Yeah.
Line number 23, please.
I'm curious how it knows where to put it in the array.
All right, so what is it doing? Line number 23, what do you think it's doing? Take a smart guess. What's going on?
I think it's probably using the same value as the index variable I, using that to put it in that position.
But I don't see I in that line number 23. I is not mentioned anywhere.
That's what I was asking.
Okay, so what? Let's start from the beginning. Like, this is actually divided into three portions. So what's the first one? What is this? Paid TV shows. What is that? It's your array name. Okay. All right. Excellent. Now the next one is push. What do you think is push doing?
Function.
It's a function which is pushing something basically. Okay. What is it pushing? What's the last one? TV show. And what is TV show? I answered. Now, can you connect the dots and see? So I have an array, and I'm saying on my array, push this thing. It does not need I in this case. Why? This is another way you can add stuff to your array. Okay. What it does is you mention the name of the array, and then you say dot push. This means you are adding stuff to the array. And what are you trying to add? Whatever you give in over here. In this case, prompt will have a string. You will name your favorite TV show. It's going to go ahead and add that string to your array.
Does it by default put it in the first available position?
It will put it by default in the last available position. So the push is basically an append. How does this work? When you push something, it's going to put on your index number 0. When you push it again, it's going to put it on index 1. And then push it again, it's going to put it at index 2. So it is always going to append towards the end of the array. And yes, it knows it does not need the index number because by default it's always going to put it towards the end of the array. So it's going to create that index and put it over there. So that's why you don't need an I over here. Okay, but how many times is it going to push? 3 times. Excellent. Why? Because my for loop is running 3 times, so it's only going to push 3 times. That's what it is. But can I access once I'm done with it? John, go ahead. What about line number 27 to 30? What am I doing over here? So by this part is complete, pop-up comes up, they ask me 3 times what are my favorite shows, and then my array now contains the 3 shows that I selected. Okay? Line number 27 to 30.
It's going to look through the array and alert 3 times with all 3 favorites.
Right? You see now my array, does my array contain the string elements now? It does. Why? Because in the first phase I completed everything. Now I can access them using the index numbers. Right? I didn't have to put in any index numbers over here when I'm using push. Why? By default it's always going to add towards the end of my array. Okay, and then I can access this array as I would, starting from index 0 to the end of the array length. Okay? Any questions? Does everybody understand? So this is another way you can add stuff to your array, dot push function. Okay? Yes, sir.
Just noticed that we didn't necessarily look at it, but on line 14, we declare the TV show variable, and we don't assign it a value there, so that we can reassign it inside of our loop.
On line number 19, yes. Thank you, Ethan. Sarah.
So every time we want multiple things in it, we want like an array to be displayed back, we have to put it into a string essentially, right?
If I want the array to be displayed back,
Like the alert down there, that putting the variable there with the array is turning it into a string essentially, right?
yes.
So every time we want each index of the array to display, it has to be put into a string.
It does not have to be put into a string. This could be an array of numbers and it will still work. It can be an array of anything. Alert function knows how to process whatever information is over here. So you don't have to worry about that, oh, do I need to pass in a string to my alert or a number or anything? We don't have to worry about. Why? Because the alert function can process this information. So what we need to know is that my array can contain strings, numbers, booleans, anything, and it will still display it accordingly.
Okay, but we need the variable j in there, regardless if it's a string or number, to take it from array and display with
Yes.
whatever.
So what is the data type for j? What?
Array.
No. The j. This variable j. What is the data type for this? What I mean is, Is it, what is it signifying that what you can store in the variable j? Is it a string, is it a number, or is it a boolean?
String.
J?
Boolean.
What is it assigning? Well, you said
Number.
string, you said boolean, now only one of them is left, so let's go ahead and say that. Number, why is it a number? Why? Because you see, this is the declaration, right? Just like any variable. So I'm saying var j is equal to 0. This is a number. This says that my data type for j is going to be a number. Okay, so this j or any variable that you put in is always going to be a number. Okay, and how? Because I'm assigning, to start with, I'm assigning a number over here. That's why it becomes a number. So j is always going to be a number. And why it has to be a number? Because my array index is expecting a number over here. It has to be a number. In the square brackets, you have to put in 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. Right? That's how array will go and find what element you're looking for. That's why this has to be a number. So the data type for this variable is a number. So j is a number, j is a number. What about I over here? Is that a number too? It is a number. It has to be a number. Otherwise, it won't be able to get anything from here.
What is the J++ again? That's plus.
J plus plus is a short form for j is equal to j plus 1.
J++.
This is the short form. Okay, what it does is it increments the value of j and then assigns itself back to j. So that you don't have to create a separate variable, you can just keep using the same one over and over again. Okay?
Good question.
What is it?
Wouldn't it not matter? Well, it'd be useless if you put some value in the variable for TV show. Because once the prompt comes up, it'll just store whatever you type into that variable.
Yes. So
So you could put something as a variable, but you just would never get that result anymore with this code.
not following. So prompt
So he
is
was saying like the variable was not assigned any value.
which variable?
TV show.
TV show is getting assigned a value from
At the
here.
very beginning.
Yes.
On line
Oh, on
14.
the top? Yes. Right now I don't have anything. Yes. So what's going to happen?
So even if you did assign it, once the prompt comes up, it gets reassigned.
Yes. It's going to get overwritten. So basically, Chris over here is saying if I did something over here, right? This is going to get overwritten at this point. Yes, it will. So that's why it's kind of empty. So there's no point in assigning anything to it. That's why my array is also empty. The only thing it has this, I'm signifying so the JavaScript at this point knows that this is going to be an array. At this point, line number 14, does JavaScript know is it a string, number, or boolean? It does not know. Why? Because I haven't assigned anything. At this point, JavaScript is like, oh, this is going to be a string. But at this point, this is an array because I'm saying to JavaScript this is going to be an array. Yes, Josh.
So just confirming, like, just for my own understanding, so like inside the loop, it assigns, like with the prompt, it assigns TV show.
Mhm.
It pushes TV show to the array,
Yes.
and then on the next loop, it overwrites TV show again because of the prompt.
Yes. In the next loop, it comes back and then writes with a new value.
Okay.
And then adds it. And then comes back and writes again. And then comes back. Yes, it's overriding. John, you had a question?
Would be wrong to not declare the variable to equals point on line 14 and just declare it as part of my loop, line 17?
Totally. At this point, I don't see. Let's see if am I using TV shows anywhere? Nope. So basically, John is saying, can I do this? Yeah, because I'm not using this anywhere. Right? It's not. If it was being used outside this loop, then probably. But yeah, it should work too.
Yeah, you guys will quickly run into situations where you want your variables declared outside because then if you need to access it anywhere outside of that
Right.
group.
Right. Yeah. But in this case, yeah, you can because I'm not using it anywhere. Should be okay. All right. Any other questions? Good. Sure. All right. Well, it's not going to get any easy from here on. So, last chance. Oh, there you go. What is it? Oh, what, am I lying? Is it getting easier? Except Josh over here who thinks JavaScript is super easy.
Well,
but
so far it is.
so far it is.
But, that's our next class is gonna be like all like in alien language again.
Is there like anywhere you would suggest brushing up on this stuff?
Activities. Just do the activity. I'm going to Slack out a workbook. I was waiting for the end of the class. It has a revision about JavaScript concepts and everything. I'll Slack it out. But again, brushing up activities. Just keep going. Do the activity, delete it. Do it again until you feel comfortable. Again, you can do these activities. Some of the activities has a template, right? They give you Bootstrap and everything, right? If you get super comfortable, delete the whole template and write everything from scratch. That's the expert level. Okay, delete the document.get IDs and everything from our rock paper scissors game and try that again. That's the only way to get good at JavaScript. It's practice writing code. You can read all the stuff. The concept, you guys get it now, right? If you're not getting the concept, that's number one issue. Get the concept. After that is practice. You need to keep practicing to get to that point. All right. Let's look at the next one. This is it this one? No, this one. Okay. So in my exercises, what I have done is I have created index.html and JavaScript before the class. I hope everybody is now kind of familiar of the coding style that I use. So in all these, I already have an index built in. I'm connecting my JavaScript file, and all the code I'm going to show you is in my JavaScript files now. Okay? All right. So I have 4 arrays over here. All right. Now I want to console log each one of them. Okay. So how would I do that? I want to console log each one of these. Like I want to console log all the elements in Avengers, Justice League, Marvel movies, DC movies. Josh, you tell me. Josh E. I want to log each element of every single of these 4 arrays. What do I do?
That's not. I was just looking at my notes for it. Wouldn't you just set up a loop that like printed the length? Like
Yeah.
I equals
Excellent.
0.
So let's start. So tell me how do I do the loop?
4 and then parentheses.
Okay.
Declare the variable.
Var. Okay. I.
Equals 0.
Okay. And then is.
Less than
Let's start with the first one. Avengers dot
length.
Excellent. And then what's the last one? Increment.
Oh yeah, I plus plus thing.
I plus plus. Okay. And then I would just do a log for Avengers and then I. Okay. Kind of similar to the previous one. Oops. Okay. All right. What about the next one, Justice League? What do I do? Keep going, Josh.
Yeah, do the same thing.
Do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Can I just copy paste it? Should be, right? And then change this to
Do that to Marvel Justice League. That's
Justice
the same
League.
thing.
Okay. What about Marvel movies? Same thing?
Yeah, same thing.
And then let's change this. And for the last one. Okay, same thing, right? Do you guys tired seeing me copy pasting this? Right? Yeah, yeah. How do we do it all in one? Right? You see how much repetition there is? There's a principle in engineering you will hear a lot. Dry. It means do not repeat yourself. Okay. This is one of the principles that please hold a steadfast to it. I mean, this should be whenever you're coding, this should be your motto. This should be what you should be writing code for. Dry principle. Do not repeat yourself. Am I repeating myself? I am, right? I'm continuously creating the same loop, same loop, same loop again and again and again. Right? So this is a good segue into what we call functions, right? Functions are what they do is they kind of put your code that is repeating in one block, and then you keep calling that function over and over and over again. Okay? JavaScript functions are, you will see functions everywhere in JavaScript, right? And the reason is just to avoid these kind of things, right? You will see programmers are extremely lazy and they don't want to write so many lines of code. That's why we have some built-in functionality to kind of avoid this kind of situation. One of them is called JavaScript functions. Okay? Now, how do functions work? Let's go ahead and I'll just create it over here. Okay. So what am I? The first thing is, what is a good candidate for a function? Anything that is repeating. And what am I repeating over? I'm going through the same array, a different array, but I'm exactly everything other than the name of the array. Everything is same, right? I'm getting the length, and I'm doing a console log. Everything is same except the length. Okay, except the name of the array. So this is a good candidate. I can create a function that does it once, and then I can keep calling it over for 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 times, and it will do the same thing. Okay. Now, how do you create a function? The keyword is called function. Oops. I'm doing autocomplete today. All right. But this is how you create a function. So the keyword is called function. Then you give the function a name. Console log array. That's what I'm calling it. Okay. And then similar to if and for loops, parentheses, and then curly braces, start and begin. Oh, start and end. Okay, this is how you create a function, or this is how you define a function, or function definition. Okay. So when I say create a function or define a function, or where's your function definition, I'm trying to come to this point where you have created a function. That's the point. Okay. So basically, this is a syntax for creating a function. All right. Now, these things within your parentheses, these are called parameters. Okay, these are variables that you can pass into your function. Okay, again, these are variables that you can pass into your function. Now, since these are variable, the data type could be string, number, arrays, anything. You can pass in anything inside it, and this, your function within this will have access to that variable. All right. What do I mean? Let's say array to log. Okay, if you see something like this, any variable, this should tell you that you are passing some data inside it. This parameter is going to have some kind of data inside it. All right. Now, looking at this, I'm creating a function that's going to console log my array. What array? I'm going to pass this array inside this variable. That's what it means. So I have a parameter array to log, and this will have, my function is going to have access to this variable. Okay, and within this curly braces, this is called the function body. Function body. So anything, any parameter that I pass this variable, my function is going to have access to it within its function body. Okay, now how many parameters can I pass? As many as you like. Number, some boolean, any variable, any number of variables you want to pass in, you can pass in. Okay, again, these are called parameters. Let me go back here. One thing to note, do you see how I'm writing my code? That I have a lowercase, first of my words is lowercase completely, and then when I begin a new word, the first letter is uppercase. Okay, now can I do this? Will this work? It will. Okay, will this work? It will. It doesn't matter. JavaScript doesn't care what you are naming, but this is more for us engineers to have some kind of a standard. And this kind of the way that I'm writing is called camel casing. Right? This is one of the standards that we use in writing our function names, variables, and some other things, and we'll get to it. But this thing has a name. It's called camel casing. There are different kind of standards. The one that I'm using is called camel casing. In this case, it's kind of like a camel. These are, it kind of starts like this and then goes up. That's why it's called camel casing. But in this case, the first word that makes sense to me, I'm going to make it lowercase. Everything after that, if it's a beginning of a new name, I capitalize the first letter and then keep going on. Okay, again, this is called camel casing. That's why you'll see my variable names. I'm following the same camel casing practice, and that's a good one to start off with. Okay, my Avenger doesn't. It's still camel case, but it's just one word, so that's why you don't see uppercase in the next one. Okay, so get into the habit of using camel case when you're declaring your variables, function names, arrays. Okay. All right, coming back to this. So now I created a function and I'm passing the function an array. What can I do with this array? I can do the same for loop for var I is equal to 0, I is less than array dot length I plus plus array to log I. Okay, same code that I have above, right? Now, can I use this function to do the same things? I can. All right. So the first part of this function is function declaration. This is you define or you define a function, right? But it's not doing anything right now. The definition just defines it, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't take any action. You have to tell JavaScript when you are ready to call this function. And the next part is called calling the function. How do we call a function? You put in the function name and then parentheses, and that's it. And then if it is expecting a parameter, you pass in that parameter. So in this case, I need an array to go in. So I'm going to pass in Avengers. Okay. And this is when your function actually gets executed. All right. At this point, from line number 36 to 44, you just defined a function. It doesn't do anything. Okay. On line 47, when you call this function, that's when the action kicks in. It's going to go ahead, JavaScript will see this, it's going to go to this, and then you're passing in Avengers. What is in Avengers? It's my array on top over here. Okay. So I pass this array in. What happens when this array comes in? It loops through it, right? And then it goes and outputs everything. Now, if I wanted to console log my second array, which is Justice League, what do I have to do? I have to call the same function, just change the parameters to something different. Okay? Questions? Yes, Ren.
Does it matter what you define function? Like, we define it in the code, or you have to define it at the top or bottom?
So in JavaScript, yeah, it's a different concept. You can define anywhere, and JavaScript will be able to find it. But I prefer that I keep my function definition on the top, so that if somebody is looking for my code, within my code, I'm using a function. I want to see what's the definition. Usually, people will go on the top to try to find that function. So it's good practice to keep it on the front or on the top. But in JavaScript, they have a different concept. Even if you declare a function later on, it's able to recognize it. But again, good practice is declare your function first and then go ahead and call it. All right, yes.
So I still have to use that function for a few times, so we could pass in an array of the arrays, so that I don't have to use the function 4 times.
Um, Yeah, so you can do that. You can pass in all the arrays. I mean, you can pass as much as you want over here. Okay, so you can add more arrays to it, right? There are different ways. You can still do it. But the use case over here, this is still okay. This is one of the better cases. The reason is because this opens up that I can pass any array. Okay, I'm not restricted to how many arrays I can pass or how many times it's going to run. So the good part about this is I still have to call it a different point of time, but all I need to do is just pass in whatever array I have. Okay, yes, if you want to make it a little bit more, that it takes in a number of arrays and goes through each one of them, you can do it. It'll be a little bit more complicated. Why? Because you'll have a giant array. Within that arrays, you will have multiple arrays. So I won't go through it, but you can do it. But for now, this is still reducing the number of lines that I have to do over here. All these things, I just have to create this once, and then keep calling my functions. Okay. All right. Any other question? Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, so where you have the array to log within the parameters, so that's not defined. So are you defining it in your function? It's not defined anywhere else, or is that where all the data is stored?
This is it. This is the definition. This is it. That's a good question. I understand what she is getting to. Now, array to log, have I defined anywhere? No, this is the only place it is here, right? How does JavaScript know it? Is it going to be a string, number, boolean, or anything? Does JavaScript know? It has no idea what this variable is. Okay, it could be a string, it could be a boolean, it could be a number. It doesn't know. That's how it is.
So
It will not know.
calling it something.
Right. So you can pass in a string over here, and it's not going to complain. It's going to break your code. Yes. It's going to crash. It's going to give you an errors. Yes. But at this point, JavaScript has no idea what is this, right? But for us, we understand this is going to be an array. So that's why I'm using the array.length. Here's the other hint: is if you type in dot, Visual Studio kind of helps you through, and it shows up like a purple or a blue property length. Something over here, you see, none of it doesn't pop up. Why? Because at this point, it does not know is this an array or is this a string. It has no idea. But I know it's going to be an array. That's why I'm using the length property. I know it's going to work. But JavaScript point of view, yes, it has no idea.
So when you're defining it like that, like you said, you're just defining it, so that doesn't do anything until you actually
Yes.
call it.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't do anything until you call it. Right. So now, if I want to confuse you too much, I could create this variable as ABC, and as a programmer, you would have no idea what you need to pass in. That's why good variable names kind of are important over here. That you need to specify what exactly you want the user to pass in, right? So don't do a. What do I pass? Is it a string? How do I know this? What am I trying to pass? That's why you will see it's good practice to create some good variable names, array, so that people understand what I need to pass in. JavaScript point of view, yes, JavaScript does not care, has no idea what this is going to be. Okay. What is it? Function name, yes, same thing. Please create good function names. Don't create C. Function C, array to log. How about this? That's pretty cool, right? Short and sweet. There you go. That's it. Function C, pass in A, and it will do something. Alright? JavaScript will run. Yeah, of course it doesn't care. And then you will change this to C. It'll be all good. But of course, when somebody is looking at your code, they'll be totally confused, probably hate you, say something's nice, and then probably leave. Okay. So again, function declaration or definition, and then calling. This will not work until you call the function. Otherwise, it's just going to stay over there. Okay, it doesn't do anything. All right. Any other questions before I throw in some other technical lingo? All right. So I said these are anything that you pass in. These are called parameters. And when you are calling a function, the same thing, these are called arguments. Okay, don't ask me why you have two different names for it. But it's more like a concept, it's more like a technical thing. You will see people calling these parameters everywhere. It's okay. Or you will see some people calling it arguments everywhere. That's okay. But technically, there is a difference, and you might run into somebody who knows the difference and ask you in an interview just to know. When you are defining a function, we call these parameters. When you're calling a function, the same things are called arguments. That's all. Okay, it's more like a technical thing. Again, you will see programmers using parameters all day long for this and this also. Some people call these arguments. That's all fine. But there's a difference. When you define a function, these are called parameters. When you're calling a function, the same things are called arguments. So I am calling a function console log array and giving it an argument of Avengers. That's how you say it. Okay? All right, questions? Okay. Let me create one more function and tell you guys. So right now you saw that I'm passing in a function and it goes and console logs something. All right. So we've been looking at now. If you go back and remember prompt, alert, all of those are functions. So behind the scenes, they have a function definition somewhere in the code, right? In JavaScript engine, somebody has defined the function. What are we doing? We are just calling it, right? We don't know what the definition is, but behind the scenes, somebody has created those functions and they are making it available for prompt, alert, char at. All of these are function defined somewhere. All we are doing is we are calling those functions and passing in arguments. Remember in the parentheses, we are passing something, so those are all arguments. Okay. Now, your function can also have a return. And remember prompt is giving you back a string, right? So this means your prompt function has a return type. What's going behind the scenes? So let's suppose I have a function called add. All right, this function is going to add two numbers that I pass in. So I'm going to create two parameters. I create a function called it add, and I'm passing in two parameters. The purpose of this is I'm going to add these two numbers and then return the sum. Var, let's call it sum is equal to num1 plus num2. Okay? Now, this is what those functions are doing. Return sum. Okay, every function that you're getting something back has to have this return inside the definition. Okay, so this is a function that is taking two parameters, which is doing something and returning something. What is that something? It takes in two numbers, adds them up, and then returns the sum of those two numbers. Now, how do I call this function? Same thing. I'm going to say add. Okay, and then I need to pass in two numbers. So I'm going to say 2, 3. Okay, this is how you call a function with multiple arguments. Okay, now this is returning something to me. Same as prompt and other function, I'm going to store the result in, let's say, Okay, and then if I console log total, I'm going to see the result of these two numbers. This is what's going behind the scene of prompt. What was the next one? Confirm, char add, dot to lowercase, and all that stuff. So there's a return statement, and this is how you do it. So you're calling a function. It's going to return something. What is it returning? The addition of two numbers, and you store that in a variable, and then console log you should see the total of those two numbers. So this is called a function which is returning something. Okay, this is very common, and you guys will be writing functions that are going to perform an operation and then going to return something. Okay, so that's how those functions behind the scenes are also working. So this function has a return type of number, right? JavaScript doesn't know, but we if we take a look at it, we are going to say, oh, there's a function called add which takes in two arguments which are going to be numbers, and then it returns a number to me. That's what this function is doing. Okay, any questions on the return type? All right, so let's take a moment, do the next exercise. You have to create your functions. So take a look at it, see how you would create those functions. Let's go ahead and open this. This is exercise number 27. Let's see. Ooh, okay. Oh, that's the bonus part. So let's go back here. So the first thing, create a function called adder that takes three arguments x, y, and z. The function should add the three arguments together and log the result to the console. Okay, I did something very similar just now. So create a function. This time you're calling it adder. Instead of two, it's taking three arguments. So you're going to define a function with three parameters, x, y, and z. You can use the same name. Of course, the name is not good. The variable names should be like maybe number one, number two, number three, but it's okay.
flagging, give us down if you guys have questions. I'm here to help.
I think Lynn said she'll present the
Oh, okay. So I want everyone at least complete the first two, adder and multiplier. The other ones are a little bit more advanced, but if you're able to complete the first two, that's a good start. Then move on to the a little bit more advanced ones. So keep working on it. I'll just be talking and I'll start coding the first one so that if somebody is stuck, they can look up and see. So I have to create a function called adder that takes 3 arguments. So I start with saying function. It's going to be called adder, and then it's going to have 3 arguments x, y, 3 parameters x, y, and z. Okay, that is how I define my function. The next part is the function should add the arguments together and log the result. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable sum, and it's going to add my 3 parameters, and then it's going to log that sum to the console. And this is how my function definition is complete. Now if I run this, it shouldn't run because I have just defined it, but I'm not actually calling it. Okay, so my function doesn't do anything because I haven't called it. So let's go ahead and call this function. So I'm going to say adder, and then I need to pass in 3 numbers. So let's say 2, 3, 4. Now you should see something on the console, and there it is, 9. So function definition, and then calling the function. calling the function. So unless you call, your function doesn't actually do anything. So do the same thing with the multiplier now. Instead of summing, you are multiplying all the three arguments. Also, please see that log, console log, this is a function on its own, which you're passing in an argument. Same thing that we have done. So console log is also a function, and you're passing in an argument that writes it to the console over here.
So this is the simplest way that we set a variable
So same thing with the multiplier. Create a function called multiplier. So I'm going to use the keyword function, call it multiplier. Okay, takes in three arguments. I'm going to stub this out first. Takes in three arguments, x, y, and z. Okay, and then the function should multiply the arguments and log the result. Okay, var multiply result. Let's say I'm going to call it result of multiply. Okay, x. This is a multiplication operator in JavaScript. It's a asterisk or star, and this will multiply the three argument that you pass in. And then you have to console log result, the variable that you created. Okay. Again, I don't see the result. I'm going to add a console log here so that below is the sum. Okay, so I know which one it is. And then I'm going to console log below is the multiplication. Okay. You will see that I don't see the multiplication result. Why? Because I have just defined the function, but I'm not calling this function yet. To make this work, I need to call the multiplier function and then pass in three arguments, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes ahead and starts working.
You ever use Rebel IT?
I don't what?
Rebel?
I've heard about it. I have not. Is it good?
Yeah, I like it.
What is it? What am I trying to remember with Rebel? What does
It's
it do?
basically a virtual cloud-based, it's like an IDE, but
files there. It has all languages in there.
Oh, okay.
But you can save each one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you
I've
see the
heard
output right
about it.
down there, you know.
Okay.
You don't have to go back to console and do it.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Any questions on the first two one? The first two ones are creating the functions, a little bit basic functionality, but those two are important. Everybody should be able to create the first two at least. Any questions on the first two, or anybody not understanding or not able to create the first two functions before I did the solution? Yes. In this case, yeah, because it is saying use the console, the return is the next one. Yeah, this one I'm just following the instruction. The next one says add the return, and the next one that I do, I would add the return. Yes. Yes. Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So there was a bonus for changing this to added return. This right now is console logging, right? So you can create a function instead of logging, it returns the sum. So you will do function adder return. You see how I'm doing this? I first stub out my functions with the complete syntax because I've seen that I get in a habit if I don't do this. I might forget the closing or the ending tag, so that's why I kind of stub those basic thing out, and then I go back and kind of keep fill the rest of the stuff in. So same thing over here, XYZ, and I'm going to add them var some. Okay, and this time instead of console logging, it is saying return the sum. So I'm going to do a return my sum rate. Oops, not set timeout. Return the sum. That's what it, now how do I, what happens if I call this adder return 4 5 6? Okay, but you see on my console nothing changed. I'm still getting the result from my previous function, and the multiplication I'm still not getting, even though I'm calling the return the function, I'm still not seeing the result. Why is that? So I have my function definition, that's good, and then I'm also calling my function, but I still don't see the result of this. I see the result for the first one, I see the result for the multiplication one, but I don't see the result for, why is that? What was that? Because there's no console log. So how do I do a console log for this one? So you can save the result in another variable, okay, and then console log that sum. This time it will show me. Just say below is the result from adder return. Okay. Oops. And then it will show me, because there's no console log inside my function. It just returns me the total, right? Or if you want a shorter way, you can console log this thing, and this is a short form. Again, this, as you code more, you will kind of you will get used to. You don't need a variable, you can just put in this one, because this actually returns something and console log will just output that. So this will also work. This is just a short form for this thing. Again, this will shortcut for the, as you keep practicing more, you'll kind of get used to it, and you will start, trimming some lines from your code. You can actually do this whole thing also in in just one line. I mean, you don't need this variable. You could just console log this thing over here. Okay, I'm just doing it so everybody is clear what's going on. But there are a little bit shorter ways you can complete the same exercise. Okay, so everybody did the first two, and then the next one is this is important so that you understand how do you return something. Okay, same thing, change multiplier, change it to the return, and do the same thing and call it, I think it's calling multiplier return. Is that what it's called? Multiplier return, yeah. Okay, any questions on any one of these four functions? Yes, this one. There's no, in this use case, in this case, yes. Right, in this case, it doesn't matter. This is just an exercise to show you how what return does and what return doesn't do. That's all. Now, if there are different cases when you do more advanced exercise, you will see that in some cases you need the return, in some cases you wouldn't need it. In this case, it's better to have a return because you see your function is a lot more cleaner. All it does is it adds your the numbers that you pass in and returns you the sum. That's the sole responsibility of this function. Now, if you add a console log, I feel like it's kind of doing something that it's not supposed to do. All this function should be doing is adding these numbers and giving me the result. Now it's up to me what I want to do. I want to console log it, yes, I'll do it. I don't want to console log it, I won't do it. Right? So the first one was to get you started, right? Console. But then you are right. You're like, well, I mean, why is it console? It's kind of hiding the information from me that if I call that function, it's going to automatically console log for me. It shouldn't be doing it. What it should do is it should do what it is supposed to. It should add these numbers and give me back the sum. That's it. Next is my response. I want to console log. Maybe I want to do an alert. Can I do an alert with this function? I cannot because it's all only going to do console log. I have to change this function. But I can do an alert with this one because I'll get a sum and I can use it in my alert. I can use it in my console log. It doesn't matter. Yes.
So the return is just outputting, putting out an output that's only read in like the JavaScript engine and not in the function. That's gonna be different.
It's not exactly like that. All it is doing it's just giving you something back, a result back. That's all it does. So basically, what return is saying is that this function is going to return you something, a number, string, boolean. It doesn't matter. Um, it will not do anything. Yes, it will just return you the sum. And then it's your responsibility. What do you want to do with this? You can do a console log. You can do an alert. You have different choices. But with this one, you don't have much choice. All it does is does the console log for you. So this is a better way to go about it because now you are giving the ability to the person who's calling this function to do whatever they want to do. It's more flexible. Yes, they can do a console log or they can do an alert or they can do anything. Maybe it's required for something else. That's what they will do. Yeah. The exercise was just so you can get started with a rudimentary one and then kind of go into a little bit more advanced and refactor this code. All right, any other questions? So was everybody at least able to create the first two and then the return? No? Maybe? Yes? Just one yes. Okay. Any questions before we move on? Now there are bonus ones. I'm going to leave those. If you have completed the first one, give it a try. I'll put the solution. But this will give you a challenge to kind of complete it. And if it is confusing, you can ask me what it is doing in the next class. But I want you guys to go ahead and try. Start with this one, and then go on to this one. Okay, start with the wall checker. That's a little bit more. I won't say easier, but it's a good starting point, and then come to this one because this one actually uses something called type of. That's a bit more. Read up on it. It's not as difficult, but start with creating this one and then go back to that. Okay. All right. So let's move on to our next topic, which is objects. But you guys see the what's going on console log. This is also a function basically, right? And this function is actually expecting an argument of anything that you pass in, it logs it, right? That's the function. Okay. Prompt, alert, all of those are functions that are taking in some arguments and doing something, right? And now these things, we are calling these functions, but they are definitely defined behind the scenes in JavaScript. Okay. Now, Now the next part we will see is this dot thing. What is this console dot something? We understand the log part. We understand it's a function. Now this is where objects come in. Okay. So we'll come to console log and all those stuff. First, we need to understand how these are, what are objects and how they work. Okay. Let's go back here. Let's see, what example do I need? I want to show. Let's see. Functions, objects. This one. All right. Same as previous one, I have my index.js, which is using my array.js file. Okay. Line number 1, I have an array. Okay. And line number 3, I have another array. Okay. Now, take a minute. Do you guys see the relationship between the first array and the second array? Is there any relationship between the first and the second array? What is that relationship? Anyone? Right, you guys see? And it is exact one-to-one relationship. You see the index number 0, the answer is on index number 0 of the second array. The question on the first array on index number 1 corresponds to the answer on to the second array at index number 1. One-to-one match. Okay? Now, does everybody understand the relationship? Okay. Now the question is line number 7. How do I use the input to get Carol Danvers? So here's the thing, okay? And I have this, which corresponds to this index, right? The value at index number 0 on the first array. This is all I have. Now I want to get the value from this array. How would I do it? How would I tell the computer? For me as human, I can see that there's a relationship, but how do I write code to get that value back? Console log what? Console log Captain Marvel values index number 0? No, that's the wrong answer actually. I mean that's too easy. But the important point over here is I am given this. Okay, real name. Now I can change this to species, and my code shouldn't change. It should still give me the answer back. How do I write that code that if this changes, my code below doesn't change? It still gives me the correct answer. So if I put in real name, it should give me Carol Danvers. If I put in species, it should give me the Cree hybrid answer. How do I write some code that does this for me using these two arrays?
You need to take the input and check which position it matches in the first
Excellent.
array.
You guys
Take
see
that
what
position
Chris is saying? All right, Chris, take it home. What's the code? You remember the function? So the first thing Chris is saying, I need to get the position or index number of input, right? And what is input? Input is the variable that I have created on the top. So whatever the value of this input is, I need to get the index number from the first array. So what's the index where this exists? It's 0, right? If I change the species, what's the index number? 1. So I need to get that back. And what's the function that I use to get index numbers back? Index of. Okay. So Captain Marvel info dot index of input. Will this give me the correct index? It will. Do I need to change any code if I change this to species? No, right? It's always going to give me the correct index of this one, right? Now if I have the correct index from this, I know these are one-to-one relationship, right? So whatever the index number is over here, the answer lies on the same index number for this array. So what now I know what's the index number. What do I have to do to get the actual value? Right? Var value is equal to, and then just like the array index. Will this give me the correct answer? So now I have the index number for species, which is 1, and if I go to my second array and look up 1, it should give me the correct answer. So if I change this to alias, will this code still work? Yes? You see that? Does everybody see that? That is still going to work. So this is the solution that I built a relationship, but how do I tell JavaScript that there's a relationship, right? Without kind of hard coding or without changing my code, keep changing my code over here. And this is how you would do it, right? And the reason is because I know that there's a relationship between this, okay? Now, if this relationship breaks, if I add something over here, this code is not valid anymore, okay? So the issue with this is it's still not, it's kind of tied together. Like as humans, as engineers, we can see the relationship and we are kind of forcing JavaScript to create this relationship. But behind the scenes, JavaScript actually, these two are independent arrays, right? If I add something towards the end of this array, this relationship kind of breaks, right? But JavaScript will still execute this code and try to process this. Okay, so arrays are good as a collection, but they are not good in creating a relationship. Eventually, these are still two independent arrays, right? There's no relationship between them from the coding perspective. From us, yes, we can see the relationship, but from the coding, from the JavaScript perspective, they still don't have any relationship between them. And that's why we come to objects. Objects kind of take care of this, and they built in, what they do is, if you have relationship between two things, you bundle them together in an object, and that's where the object comes in. Okay, now if I was converting this to an object, if I was converting this to an object, let me look up these values here. Okay. So object is the next data type that we are looking at. So we started with string, number, boolean, right? Then we saw arrays, and arrays is square brackets. Objects is curly braces. Okay, this denotes that the data type or the variable is an object. Okay, and same thing. Let's say and Marvel. This is my variable. For arrays, you do square brackets, right? For objects, curly braces. This tells JavaScript that the next part, this is an object now. Okay? Square brackets, array, string, number, boolean, and then object with curly braces. Everybody good so far? All right. Now, how do we convert that into, how does object work? So object has something called property and value. So when you are creating an object, property colon value. This is, it's kind of like a key value pair if you understand that. But in objects, these are called property and value. On your left side, you will define a property. On your right hand side, you will have a value for that property. For example, real name, that's a property. And what's the value for this property? This thing. Okay, so I have an object, and within an object I'm going to have properties and values. All right, I can have multiple properties. This is my first property. Right, what is my property? Real name. And what's the value for this property? The name of the person. Okay, all right, the next property is species. Okay, what's the value? Same thing. Okay, what's the data type for these properties? Strings, right? Double quotes. Now, can I have a number property? Yes. Set. Okay, so my third property is actually a number. Can I have a Boolean property? You can have a Boolean property. Can I have a array property? Yes. So basically you can, any data type that is available, that can be part of the property. Can an object be part of a property of another object? It can be any data type. It can be a string, number, Boolean, array, another object. Everything is kosher over here. Okay, we'll get to the object part, but this is how you define. You have a property, and then you have a value for that property. Okay, let's go ahead and create a Boolean. Okay, this is my Boolean property, and then I can also have an array property. So let's say it's multiple aliases. This is going to be an array, and that's how I denote my array, right? Put in some string properties and so on and so forth. Okay, so my object has string properties, Boolean properties, and also has an array. Everything is now together. Okay, yes. No double quotes. Excellent. Somebody actually noticed it. That's good. All right, I don't have double quotes in these properties, but these properties do have it. Okay, all right. When you are creating an object, generally you will see without quotes. Okay, this is how we define properties. But you can put quotes also, and it will still work. Okay, but this is not going to work unless you have double quotes. Why? Because you have a space over here. Again, by standard, please don't create properties with spaces. I'm showing you it is possible, but don't do it. Okay, the better way would be to rename this using camel casing and call it real name. That's a better way to do it, and then you can remove the quotes. Okay, but again, if you have space in property, which I'm sure you guys are not going to do it, okay, then you have to have a quote. So all of these can be like this. Okay, and generally speaking, this is how you would see properties, and properties are going to be camel case names as well. And I'll explain the reason that this is available in JavaScript. Okay, before I go to that part, any questions so far? Does everybody understand how to create or declare an object? This is how you are declaring an object. And the next part is, how do we access these properties? How do I find out what's inside these properties? Okay, questions? Everybody good? All right, how do I access these properties? I'm going to console log. Yeah, it's a space so you guys can see. Now, I want to access the property species which is inside the object Captain Marvel. Okay, how do I do it? You start with the object name, dot, and then pick any property that you want, species. What is it going to do is going to go inside this object and get this value and print it out on your console. Let me open my index. Oh no. Why did I include index in my index? Okay. Do you see the property that it showed? The one that I'm trying to access. Now, if I want to access a different property, let's say age, same thing. The name of the object that you have defined above, dot, and then whatever property you're trying to access, age. It's going to give you the age back. Yes.
What happens if you try to print the array? Or your log the array?
What's going to happen if you try to print the array? Okay, so what you take a guess. So how are you going to access the array first? What will be the code?
Console.log Captain Marvel dot aliases.
Okay,
Or what
excellent.
do you just
Right? What's going to happen if I do that? It's going to output my whole array. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and output all my array. If I want to access a certain index from this array, what do I have to do? Just square brackets and the index number. 1. Just like you would access any array. That's how you would do it. Okay? You see the dot? This is called the dot notation, and that's how you access properties within an object. Right? Let this sink in, and then at some point go back and think all the functions that you have been using. Console dot log, document dot get element ID. Eventually, before anything before the dot, that's an object. Remember that. Now think about, says console. What is console? Console is also eventually an object. Okay. But we'll come to that. For now, anything before the dot is your object name. Anything after is a property that you're trying to access. Okay? Now, how do I access the one with the space? You cannot do Captain Marvel dot real space name. Okay? No, don't give up. I have my IntelliSense set up, so it kind of corrects me. But you cannot do this, right? It's going to give you an error, right? The only way to access a property that has a space is using, instead of dot, you need to use let me go ahead and console log so you can see the results. Okay, this is how you would access instead of the dot notation, it's going to be kind of like the array syntax, and within the quotes you are going to mention the property. Okay, this is confusing, but this is the only way to access the property that has a space in it. Okay, again, not recommended. Don't do this. Okay, please don't do this. Instead, the better way is change it to using camel casing, and then using it just like any other property. This saves you to type in double quotes as well. Okay, and then you can access these properties, right? If it was up to me, I wouldn't even tell you guys how to access the space one, but my professional attitude tells me that, okay, I need to give you those options, but please don't use it, right? And the reason is that we are going to be accessing objects from third party. We'll get to that, right? Some people might be using space, but so that's why you need to know how to access these properties. But when you are creating an object, please create it this way. Don't use double quotes. Use camel casing and then create. Basically, these are variable names eventually if you see it. Okay? All right, any questions before I make it even more complicated now? Yes.
I'm confused about the aliases and then the index.
Okay.
Mention
So what is aliases? What's the data type?
the string.
Aliases.
Oh, it's the whole array.
It's the array, right? And how do you access an array? With the indexes. That's all. So if you hide this part out, it's just an array. And this is just saying that, oh, this array exists within an object. That's why you have to do this.
I thought it was a string in the array, so that's why it's confused.
Oh, maybe because I put it in a new line, it's confusing. Let me go back and I like it in a where it's visually pleasing to me, but I see it's can be confusing. Is that better? So it's an array. Okay? Yes. Oh, so the question is the other way around. So what she's saying, how do you access how do you give the object the data and get the property?
How do I get the data type of that?
Oh, you're trying to get the data type of that
Let's say aliases, I don't know what's that. I don't remember.
Oh, no, well, so
How do I find that?
there is an answer for that, but I don't want to confuse it. You can use the type of operator to find it. Again, everybody don't hear this. It's a little more confusing. Type of operator to find what the type is and then do it. But eventually, generally what we do is we look at the object and then try to what I would do is it's better console log the whole object and then see what's the data inside and then find it out. Yeah, that's definitely going to be an easier way than what I'm suggesting, the type of one, and that's how generally speaking you will see us using that. But look into the type of operator and that should tell you what the type of that is. Again, if you see if I console log the whole object, it actually console logs everything and this tells me, oh, looks like a number, boolean, string, oh, this is an array, and that's how I would access it. Okay, this is a easier and a better way. Just console log the whole object and then look at it and try to find out, oh, what are you trying to access? These are the properties in my object. Okay, and how do I access them? This is how I access each one of them. Okay, any other questions? Now my property can have a string, this. It can also have other objects also. Let's see. But give me a property. I can't think of any property now. No? I have to think on my own. Let's say can do. Same thing in an object. And then an object has properties. So you will have more properties. Task 1, chicken fly. 2. Okay, so I have another object within my object. Yeah. Okay, now how do I access task 1? How would I go about accessing this property? What is it? How do I start? Object name Captain Marvel. Okay, and then can do, and then dot. Excellent. This is how you access the property, right? You keep going down the rabbit hole until you get to the property that you're trying to access. Okay. The properties can also have functions. Your object, or not property, your object can also have functions within it. Okay. Now it's getting more tricky. Let's suppose I have a function. Same thing. I'm going to create a property. Okay. And then after the colon, I'm going to say function, just how I define my function. Same thing. Now this is a function within that property. Okay, so my property can have string, number, boolean, arrays, other objects. They can, oh sorry, my objects, and it can also have functions within it. Okay, now what is the purpose of a function? Function does something, right? So let's suppose I want to do console log file. Okay, now how do I access this function? Same thing as I would do any property. So I'm going to start with my object name, dot. You will see fly away show up over here. The only thing is I need to add parentheses. Why? Because this is a function, and that's why it's going to go ahead and assign this. Why am I getting undefined? Which one is undefined property that I'm using here? Is it real name? Console. Oh, that's why. I'm doing a double log on this. Fly away. Okay. Now fly away has a console log inside, and then it goes ahead and do it. Okay. So this is how I access my functions within my objects. Now compare this with console.log something. Okay. So by this definition, right, an object name before and then a function. The console is also an object. Within that object, there is a function called log somewhere, similar to this one, and that's how they are defined. So you can have functions within your objects. You can have as many functions as you want. You can do a return as well. We'll see it in a bit. Okay. Any questions on this? So your object can have properties. These properties can be of any data type that we have learned till today. It can be a function, number, boolean, string, arrays, another object. Okay? Questions? All right, it's 11:58. I'll put up the exercise. We'll take a lunch break until 12:45. If you are here, start on that exercise. Otherwise, we'll give you some time after you come back at 12:45. Okay, it's a object exercise. You guys are going to be creating that object and solving that. That is exercise number 31. So 31 and 32 we'll be doing after lunch. Which one?
Can you put that code in Slack so we have it? Also
Oh, the code and Slack. So
just what we did
right.
now.
So the next exercise actually has the same similar code. Take a look at this. If you don't understand, I'll put it up. But the next exercise has the code, the object built in. Okay, and then you're going to access this object.
Oh, okay.
And the next one is a little bit more advanced where you don't even have this. So this one already has that code that I just put in over there.
Okay.
But different properties. Take a look at it. Yeah. Yes.
Did you guys, you want to go over something?
Yeah, just quickly. You have 5 minutes?
Ethan and Lee he said to go
Oh.
get some food.
Oh,
Maybe
okay,
you want to do
that's
it at the end of
Yeah,
lunch,
yeah,
like right
we'll do
before?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go up and then I'll tell them.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Yes. Learn what? Recursion. There's no separate topic for recursion. Yeah. No, I don't think there's like a. Once we get to the algorithm part, we can talk about what recursion is towards the end of the course. But there's no like a specific topic saying what recursion is. Getting it so far? Is it confusing enough?
I think I do. I can't use it in a book.
You can't use it. Why not?
It's like, I don't know what I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll be good. I don't know what problem I'm in.
Yeah, yeah. So these are like individual topics. In a couple of weeks, you will see that we'll be using these concepts. The only thing is just if you know these concepts, that's good. Because when we are using this, it's everything in JavaScript is an object. Every function that you're using, if you go back and look at them, your prompts, your console.logs and everything, all of those are objects. Within those objects, they have functions. For example, console log, right? So anytime you see a dot, that means that an object is involved. So that's what I was saying that there's a dot over here. This means this is an object within JavaScript, and this is a function that resides in this object. So somewhere behind the scene, there is an object called console with the same syntax, and there is a log function behind it.
So what's another besides the constant, another object?
The log function only belongs to this one. The log function only belongs to console. But for example, alert. The alert function, right? What does it do? It alerts, it shows a window, right? Similar to console log, instead of console, it's doing it on the prompt, the pop-up prompt, right? But there's no dot and there's nothing over here, right? But that's not true. In actuality, it does have.
Oh, when you do that,
It's actually, if I write this window.alert, what does this tell you? What is window?
Window is the object.
It's an object, and within this object is a function called alert. The thing is that this object is a global object in JavaScript understands, so that's why we kind of take it out. But behind the scenes, there is an object called window, and these functions are part of it. So everything is part of an object eventually. So that's one of the other ones.
So window is the box and alert is the lamp.
Yeah. Or we saw document dot get element by ID method, right? Same thing. There's a dot, so this means this is an object. Within this object, there's a function object. So everything that you see in JavaScript is going to be connected to an object. So everything is an object. ID.
Have you downloaded that?
What?
On
Get
the
element
index?
by ID? No. Okay. Get element by ID. What is element? If you talk about HTML, what is element? Oh, it's a tag.
Well, a tag is a tag, and an element is a thing inside the tag.
Right. This is to a tag, right?
I know that's
Now
usually
we
like
get
the
It's,
first
element.
it's such an open-ended question to elements. It's everything in HTML. So
Okay, alright, now you know what an element is, right? Then get element by ID. What does this mean when it comes to an element?
that's your selector. That's ID selector.
Right, if you have an ID, let's suppose, right? These are how you give an ID. So basically you are saying get an element that has an ID of this. We need this. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right, so until like 10.
Yeah, it's on like 80, right? Before class, I don't know
Oh,
Oh, I gotta do better.
I mean, I don't know, it's just like that. Is there farmers market again? Oh, no, that was the other one.
It's good.
That's 72.